You ladies? All right. So, all right. So, welcome to Miss Walker's Story Time. It is Wednesday afternoon, and we are going to dive back into Ban This Book. On Monday, the couple chapters we read, Amy Ann and her friends, Amy Ann got called into the principal's office and asked to take down her sign that listed the names that of the books that had been banned. And so she got called in the office and she thought she was going to get in trouble, and she really didn't. And so she came up with a plan that instead of a list on her locker, she put a sign that says Go Eagles, which is their school mascot. But on you flip up the sign, see the list of books that have been banned. And working and her other friends, they have decided to incorporate so that they are official. So Rebecca, Danny, and Amy Ann are on the board, as you would call it, of that incorporate. So this we're about to read chapter 20, Tools of the Trade. Oh, the reason that's called that, I forgot to tell you, was they voted Amy Ann as president and chief librarian of the banned book locker library. So, tools of the trade. I stopped by the library front desk before heading to my spot in the corner after school. I watched a second grader check out a small stack of books. Mrs. Jones scanned the little barcodes on the back with her laser thing. The computer recorded what book the kid was checking out, when when it was due back. That was no help. I didn't have a computer or a scanner or whatever program she had to keep track of it all. Mrs. Jones was watching me. Thinking of becoming a librarian, Amy Ann, she asked. I jumped. People were always reading my mind. What? No. I was just interested in how it all worked. You know, the way you keep track of the books that get checked out. Mrs. Jones ran the boys' books across the bunky thing that meant to take through the detectors at the front door without setting off an alarm. It's all automated now, said Mrs. Jones. Certainly a lot less than it used to be, trouble than it used to be. What did it used to be like? I asked her. Let's see. She walked over to the paperback spinning rack. Bring me that copy of The Witch from Blackberry Pond. It was an old, beat up copy of the book with clear cellophane tape holding the covers on. Mrs. Jones flipped to the back of the book. Ah, I thought this might have it. It's still in here. We've gone all digital now, but of course, I never got around to taking these out of the older books. She turned the book around for me to see. There, in the back cover, was the little manila envelope with a card sticking out of it. Mrs. Jones pulled out the card. See, it's a due date card. Or, well, it used to be. We used to take the card out of every book and stamp it with the due date, and when the person checking out the book would sign the card. Of course. I had seen these in the back of some of the books I had checked out, but I'd never really paid much attention to them. The card had the book's name and the author on the top. Underneath, there were two columns, one for the date and one for the borrower's name. The dates of the book were from the 1980s. Oh, sorry about the yawning, girls. The names on this date due date card were all adults by now. They took the adults and we kept the books and we kept the card, Mrs. Jones says. We would put the cards in order by date, and every day we would check to see what books had come due. How did the person checking out the books know when they were due? Oh, we put this little slip of paper in each pocket in the back, and the date was stamped on it. The whole thing was absolute headache for a large library. I was excited. My library was tiny. This is exactly what I needed. Do you have a different stamp for every day? Heavens no. There was this neat little gizmo that would stamp any date. I wonder if I still have one. Mrs. Jones disappeared into her back office. I could see her rummaging around the drawer through the windows. Guess what? Miss Walker still has one of those. The envelopes. I could use a bunch of envelopes and take them to the back of the BBL books. And then I could stick index cards down inside the little pockets with places people could sign their names and when the books were due. I could even slip a reminder notice into the borrower's locker mailbox. Ah, found one, she said. Just goes to show you, we never throw anything away around here. She came back with this complicated little hand stamp that was stained from years of use. It had a black knob at the top where you held it, and at the bottom with four rotating rubber pieces, one for the month,
Hmm.
two numbers for the date, and one for the year. It was set to May 27th, 1988. Mrs. Jones laughs. I suppose that was the last day we used it. I clicked the month backwards and forwards. What an awesome gadget. I was tried stamping my arms. It was dry, of course, only left a faint imprint of the due date on my skin. Where can I get one of these? I asked. Mrs. Jones looked surprised. Suppose they sell them somewhere. Office supply stores, maybe, though. I don't know if they offer them today. You can have that one if you really want it. The little hairs on my arms tingled. Really? Well, I certainly don't need it anymore. And it is a little out of date. Only the early has the years 1980 through 1990 on it. I didn't care. The due date stamp was amazing. I would make it work somehow. Thanks, I said, and I ran off to my corner. All I needed now was a pair of glasses on a chain, and I would be ready for my official librarian membership card. Chapter 21. Somewhere to Stomp. 2. The index cards and envelopes I found in my mom's office were doubled as the treadmill room and tripled as the guest bedroom and quadrupled as a place we dumped the holiday stuff and anything else we didn't have a place for. Angelina's room had a glue stick, and there was a pair of scissors in the kitchen drawer. Now, all I needed was a place to work. My bed wasn't a great place to cut and paste. Alexis was always there using my bedpost for a ballet bar again and playing her music too loud. The kitchen table would be perfect, but Angelina had turned it into a pony barn. She used the paper shredder in my mom's office to make hay again, and it was scattered all over the floor. Whew. I went to the living room instead, where mom and dad were watching something with knights and swords on TV. Dad paused the show they were watching as I came in. What's up, kiddo? Just some school stuff, I said. I set my things down on the coffee table and settled in it. Sorry, hun. We need you to find someplace else to work. We're watching something that you're not old enough to watch yet. Well, where do you expect me to go? I wanted to ask them. Alexis had turned my room into a ballet studio. Angelina had turned the kitchen into a stable. I sighed heavily, snatched my things up, and stomped to the kitchen. I need the kitchen table, I told Angelina. Nay, she said. I plunked my things down on the table. You're just playing, and I have a school project to do, I told her. Nay, Angelina said. I pulled out the chair and sat down, messing up her piles of shredded table. No, no, I was here first. I was here first, Angelina screamed, grabbed the chair I was sitting in, and yanked on it. When she couldn't move it, she tried pulling me out of by the arm of the chair. Let go, I'm working. You're ruining it. You're ruining it. Angelina, Amy Ann, enough, my father crawled from the living room. Angelina stopped trying to pull me out of the chair and stomped into the collapsed onto the floor where she rolled and kicked and screamed at the top of her lungs. Girls, my dad bellowed from the living room. I do not want to deal with this right now. I was here first, Angelina wailed. I was here first. Amy Ann, your sister already's using the kitchen. Find someplace else to work. I pushed my chair back from the table with as much noise as I could. I picked up my things and stomped out of the kitchen, kicking piles of Angelina's shredded paper into the air as I went. She wailed even louder, which made me feel good enough, even though I was steaming mad. I needed a place to work. I wasn't going to fight a battle with Alexis in my room, not after Angelina had already gotten angry. I needed more room than my old hideout, the bathroom. Angelina's fit and my parents yelling at us had woken the dogs and sent them scurrying into the hall, their nubby tails down and unhappy. They didn't like it when we yelled, and they were looking for a place to hide. Flotsam and Jetsam followed me into Mom's office. The bed was covered with boxes of Christmas decorations, blankets, camping gear we never used, and Mom's desk was piled high with papers and folders and boxes. That was useless. There was room on the floor, though. I plopped down with as much frustration as I could and spread out my envelopes and note cards, which Flopson and Jetson proceeded to step all over. No, no, I told them, but they kept moving around, their tails wiggling in happiness as they bent my cards and envelopes. They weren't trying to be that bad. They were just trying to get to as close as me as possible. Since I was on the floor, they thought I was down there to pet them and play with them. I dodged the dog's big legs and collected my thing and pushed past them into the hall, which wasn't a single place in this house I could work. I stomped through the kitchen again, where Angelina eyed me warily underneath the table. I didn't bother kicking her paper. I went straight out the back door and outside where it was raining. I dashed into Mom's car and jumped into the front passenger seat. There was no flat space to glue, and the car smelled like sour milk, but at least I could work in peace there. If I could only drive, I would have started the car and driven far, far away from there. I ran the back of my arm across my eyes. I couldn't tell if I was wiping away rain or tears. Chapter 22. The Right to Bear Arms. Trey had already pulled our desks together when I got to class the next day. It was time to work on our Bill of Rights project together. Not that I expected him to do any actual work. All he did in class was draw pictures. I heaved my swelling backpack onto my desk with a thunk. Whoa, what have you got there? Every school book you own? Yes, I said, and I unzipped my bag and pulled my social studies textbook out from the rest. It hit my desk with another kathunk. It was very heavy. Why don't you put all your books in your locker? Trey asked. I froze. Stupid. Amy Ann, stupid. The reason I had my textbook stuffed in my backpack was because all the space in my locker had been taken up by banned books. But of course, I couldn't tell Trey that. I hate having to go out in my locker, I lied. But I see you at your locker all the time, Trey said. You're always meeting people there. He was on to me. There was no question. He was trying to catch me in a lie, but I wasn't going to fall for it. Can we just get to our project? I said. We've missed a whole day because had to go to the office. I dug in my stuffed backpack for notes I'd made on the First Amendment. Trey pulled out a sketchbook he carried everywhere. Yeah, what happened? Did you get in trouble with Principal Bandana? No, I told him and looked him in the eyes. He expected me to get in trouble. Was he messing with me? If he was hiding it pretty well. That's good, he said, but I didn't believe him. Here are my notes on the First Amendment, I said. Cool. I drew some pictures. What? More pictures of the mouse? Me as a mouse? Of the Bill of Rights for our project. I was stunned. Trey had actually done work for our project. He turned the sketchbook around so I could see. It was a drawing of a man with huge furry arms with claws at the end, and I frowned. What's this? I asked. The right to bear arms, he said. I rolled my eyes. That's bear, like carry, not bear, like here, like an animal bear. I said. Besides, that's the Second Amendment. We're doing the First Amendment. I know, he said. I couldn't help it. It was funny. It was the first time I'd seen Trey smile, and it surprised me. He had a really friendly face and under his uncombed blonde hair when he smiled. For a second, I kind of liked him and his funny drawing, which was really pretty good. Then I remembered who he was and what he'd done to me in third grade. What does MMII mean? I asked. It was written at the bottom corner. Is that Roman numerals or something? That's my signature. Martin McBride the third. Marvin McBride? I thought your name was Trey Spencer. I said. Trey's my nickname. My mom and dad divorced when I was in kindergarten and they both remarried. Bride's my dad's last name. He's a commercial illustrator. He lives in Atlanta with his new family. Mom married a guy whose last name is Wheeler, but she'd gone back to using Spencer. That's her maiden name. Oh, I didn't know what else to say about that. Did you do anything on the First Amendment? Yeah, he flipped over another page where he'd drawn a picture of people bowing down before a weird looking alien coming out of UFO. What's that? They're worshiping the alien. See, the First Amendment says Congress can't make laws about establishing religions. So we're free to worship aliens if we want. I don't think that's exactly what it's saying, but that's part of how the government can't establish one religion to make everybody follow it. Oh, too bad. I really like the alien. It works for the other part about religion, I told him, the free exercise clause, the one that says the government can't stop you from believing in whatever religion you want to. Did you draw? What did you draw for that one? He flipped to the next page, and there was a picture of a bunch of people in pope hats and ropes lifting weight. Um, Free exercise of religion, he said, and smiled shyly. He knew that free exercise of religion really meant you could worship whenever you wanted to, however you wanted to. Not people in church doing weightlifting, but it was funny and I was smiling in spite of myself. I think we better use the UFO picture instead of that one, I told him. Yeah, he said, oh, I've got another one for the freedom of press. The picture showed a woman pressing the middle of three big buttons. See, she got the freedom to press whichever button she wants. I snorted and caught myself. I did not want to like Trey or his pictures. You do know that the freedom of press means you can print anything you want and the government can't tell you not to, right? Trey shrugged. Mine's funnier. Did you do anything on the freedom to assemble? Trey turned the page to a picture of a boy sitting on the floor building with Legos. I closed my eyes and shook my head. I thought about having him assemble a model car, but more people would be getting the Lego thing. The right to assemble says that we can come together in public to protest stuff if we want. Trey said, I know. I drew a real one for the right to petition. I couldn't think of anything funny for that. His picture for the right for petition showed a clipboard with lots of signatures on it. There were at least two there were at least two usable pictures. I ran down my list of rights to protect in the First Amendment. There was only one we hadn't done, the right to free speech. Trey said he had a picture for that too, and he flipped his sketchbook looking for it. I expected Trey to have drawn someone giving a speech without charging for it, or maybe a speech bubble or the word speech freaking breaking out of jail. Instead, he showed me a drawing of a sign that said, Books banned at Shelbourne Elementary, my locker. I looked at Tracy's surprise. He wasn't smiling this time. He was looking at me. He was staring at his hands. He was right, though. Making me take down the sign was against freedom of speech. I hadn't thought of it that way. But he had drawn it because he agreed with me or disagreed with me. I frowned at the thought. Are you going to tell me why you don't like me? Trey asked. You shouldn't have to ask, I wanted to yell. You should know your mom is an awful person for banning books, and you're an awful person for spying on me and drawing a stupid picture of me last year. Instead, I grabbed the edges of my chair and stared at my desk angrily. Mr. Vaughn announced that it was time for us to put away our social studies and get out our vocab books. Okay, well, I'll work on the others and show them to you when I'm done, Trey said, and he dragged his desk back across to the other side of the room. Chapter 23. And in this corner, I kept trying to focus on the liar and the spy and my spot in the corner, but all I could think about was Trey. He'd seen my list of banned books on my locker. He'd studied it enough to draw it and to get all the books right on the list, which meant he had to know it had been taken down too. I thought he would have wanted that. But by the way he acted and showed me the picture, it was like he was a little embarrassed or sorry. Hey, Trade said. I jumped, spitting the braid out I was sucking on and thinking about him. There he was standing next to me. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I drew a new picture of the right to assemble and I wanted to show it to you before I went home. Trey showed me. He'd drawn it right this time. The picture of a bunch of people standing on a sidewalk with signs in their hands and they that said vote no, but one. And it said, Magnets, how do they work? Magnets, how do they work? I asked. How do they work? Like magic, he said with a smile. He was joking. Anyway, that guy has as much right to be there as the rest of them, right? Yeah. Only that's not freedom of assembly, that's freedom of speech. Yeah, he said, and he looked at the floor again. The rest works, though. And you draw really great. All the different faces are different. You even drew hands. Anytime I draw a person, I drew her hands behind her back or stuck in her pockets because I couldn't draw hands and fingers. Trey shrugged. If you want to draw comic books, you have to be able to draw hands. I was about to ask Trey if that's what he wanted to draw comic books, when we both heard his mother's voice in the library. Good afternoon, Miss Jones, Miss Spencer said. Miss Spencer, said Miss Jones. She was wearing a wide green dress with bright polka dots. Miss Spencer was wearing a tiny blue tracksuit, powder blue tracksuit. They looked like illustrations for a big and little picture book as they stood staring at each other, like two Dr. Seuss characters who wouldn't get out of each other's way while people build interstates around them. Is Trey in the library? Mrs. Spencer asked finally. I think he's in the back, Mrs. Jones said. She nodded down the aisle to us. My heart beat faster. It was dumb. Mrs. Spencer didn't know who I was or what I was doing with her list of banned books, but I was still nervous and I stuck one of my braids in my mouth and sucked on it. Trey, it's time to go, Mrs. Spencer called. I guess my ride's here, Trey said. See you. Mrs. Spencer put her hand on Trey's head as she was leading out of the library. Mrs. Jones stopped them. Oh, Mrs. Spencer, I meant to thank you. She said, Thank me, Mrs. Spencer turned around, for the money you and the PTO raised to bring an author to school. I just booked someone to visit. Dave Pilkey. Mrs. Spencer frowned, trying to place the name. Didn't he write the Captain Underpants books? Yes. Mrs. Jones said, That you banned, she could have said, but she didn't have to because we knew it. Mrs. Spencer darkened. You really think that's a good idea right now? She asked. I think it's a great idea right now, Mrs. Jones said. Mrs. Spencer looked so small and mad. I half expected her to say, Well, yeah, just wait till Helen comes. You'll be sorry. Instead, she turned and led Trey out of the library, her chest heaving in her tracksuit almost as much as she'd actually exercised in it. Round 3 in the boxing match had gone to Mrs. Jones, but the fight wasn't over yet. And we will stop there. Tomorrow, we will pick up with chapter 24, which is called Helen Comes Again.